Welcome to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law.
Hello and welcome to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. Owner Rose Harper is joining me today to discuss Estate Planning 101, why everyone needs a plan, no matter their net worth. Rose, so great having you here. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you and to discuss this really important topic.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to get into it. So let's start with, why bury the lead? Why is estate planning important for everyone, regardless of their wealth or assets?
Well, one of the things that I tell everybody is that estate planning is not just for the rich. I think that's a big misconception. And by creating an estate plan, you're documenting for your loved ones what your wishes are and giving them the legal authority to carry out those wishes. So even if you're a single adult, you have no kids, you don't own any property, you should still have an estate plan done. And because of that, you'll be giving legal authority to your family to take care of the things you leave behind. You're going to have a bank account. You're going to have possessions. There's things that need to be handled. And what if you don't pass away? What if you're incapacitated? There's really important documents that come along with your estate plan. So you don't have to own a lot of property or be really rich. Even if you're a single adult, you don't own any property, you should still get an estate plan done to make things easier for your family if something happens. And the truth is that something is going to happen to all of us at some point in our life, hopefully later, hopefully not anytime soon. But yeah, definitely having the legal documents in place is very important. And the other thing I like to mention to people is putting this plan into place for your family. They're already in a stressful situation. So if something has happened to you, it's probably an emergency. They're under stress, they're emotional. And rather than trying to navigate the court system or figure out what needs to happen, they already have the plan in place, knowing what you would have wanted. So that's what happens often. People think, I don't really need an estate plan, but your family's going to end up disagreeing about what they think you would want. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to avoid. So it's not just for the wealthy, it's really for everybody. And the goal is to reduce family conflict, document what you want, and give the legal authority to the people that need to have it to carry out your wishes.
Yeah, I think people forget it. People think of it as it's just asset distribution, or it's just like who gets what of my stuff. And like if you're a single dude living in an apartment, you're like, who's going to want all this junk? So it doesn't matter. But they don't think about the fact that there's other processes that go along with, like, if you were to pass, what has to happen and how it gets done.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone has to take care of those decisions. And by you getting a plan in place, everyone will know who should do that for you and what you would want.
So you mentioned the important documents before. Can you kind of talk about what those are as far as estate planning goes and what role each one plays?
Definitely. So within an estate plan, there are different documents that you put together to create a comprehensive plan. So some plans will be focused or based upon a will. So a will is the first document that comes to mind when people think of estate planning. It's a legal document that outlines what you want to do with your property and your assets and how you want them to be distributed after you pass on. But it's not just about money and possessions. You can also identify who will be the guardians for your minor children in your will, which is really important. And then the next thing that you'll have along with your will, so even if you get a will, you still need to have a healthcare proxy. This also goes along with a living will, which is really just medical directives. There you're outlining what your preferences are for medical treatment, especially in life-threatening situations. And then you're giving authority to the person of your choice to make those decisions for you if you're unable to. A lot of contention happens in medical situations. It's very stressful. So having that in place is very important. Along with your medical power of attorney and your will, you'll have a general power of attorney. And this gives the person of your choice legal authority to make legal and financial decisions for you. So you have medical decisions, you have legal decisions, and you have financial decisions. So those are really important documents that you need alongside of your will.
Yeah, you want to take that out of you don't want a family member to have to decide what to do in a really tough situation. If it's just outlined, then that's what happens.
Yes, exactly. The other thing that you want to think about is Well, another option for estate planning, you could have a will-based plan, but you also could have a trust-based plan. And with a trust-based plan, you're still going to have a pour-over will. You're still going to have your medical directives, your healthcare proxy, your general durable power of attorney, but you're also going to be creating a trust. And a trust is really just a legal arrangement, an agreement between the creator of the trust, the trustee, and the beneficiary of the trust. And while you're alive, you're in all three of those roles. So when you create the trust, you're essentially creating an agreement where any property that is covered by the trust does not have to go through the surrogate's court or the probate process. So it's a really great tool to have for someone who, doesn't want their family to have to go through the court system for various reasons, which we can talk about later. But that's also a really nice tool to have. And trust could be a single trust. There could be multiple trusts created. Trust design planning can get really complicated, but you can go from a basic trust to a really complex trust plan. And it just depends on your goals for your family.
Yeah, the trusts, I think, is another one that a lot of people just assume is for rich people, right? Because it's like, you think of trust fund babies, or you think of trusts as being like for large amounts of money and big corporations. But can you kind of explain the overall difference between them as far as when someone should consider one over the other or both?
Yeah. So for example, anyone who has like a life insurance policy and has minor children, that life insurance policy can't just get paid out to your kids if, God forbid, both parents were to pass away at the same time. So they actually have to create a trust where the money can be held for their children. So if you don't create it now, or you don't have it as a testamentary trust in your will, then your family's going to have to go through the court system to get that trust put into place. So minor children cannot inherit. So even if you don't have a plan in place, for example, if your estate has to go through the surrogate's court, then the judge would oversee creating a trust to hold the assets for your minor children until they become of age. The benefit of creating that trust before that is that you can actually choose to create like a lifetime asset protection trust for your kids that protects that inheritance from future bankruptcies, creditors, medical liens, divorces, things that might occur in their life that you don't know about yet. And then the other thing with the trust is you could also just decide that, you don't want them to get the money out right at 18. You want them to get it at an older age or things like that. The trust really helps you plan for contingencies. If this, then this. It gives you a lot of flexibility with that. And those are things that, if you don't have a plan in place or you just do your will, you won't be able to plan for all of that. And your will, if you only do a will, that still has to go through the surrogate's court. And the trust, yes, trust could be very expensive, but if you look at the overall fees of having your gross estate have to go all through the surrogate's court versus having the trust own some or all of your property to avoid having to be probated, you can actually save your estate a lot of money.
And when it comes to misconceptions, there's a big one I'm sure you'll talk about that we already kind of touched on about being for the wealthy, but you run into a lot of different people in your line of work. What do you hear the most that people get wrong?
I mean, definitely estate planning only being for the wealthy is probably the biggest misconception. And then the other thing is that people think that wills will cover everything. Like, oh, I just need a will. Like, okay, yes, you do need a will, but there's these other documents that are just as important. And then something that my law firm does, which is we go beyond those basic documents and we talk to our clients about, legacy interviews that we include in our plans if our clients want them, to really also pass down those values that they want to, pass on to the next generation. And then we have kids protection plans where we talk about our emergency responders and giving people nearby to you legal authority to actually be with your kids in the case of an emergency before a long-term guardian could arrive. So those are some additional things that we put into place. But yeah, I think the misconception is oh, I just need a will and I can do that, download one off the internet.
Yeah.
A really basic template if you have the most simple situation, but most people are in blended families. So you might have children from a prior marriage. There's so many things to consider, and you really want to make sure that everyone is accounted for and that things are fair. And so to do that, you need thorough and comprehensive planning. And then the other thing with creating an estate plan with an attorney, for example, versus going online, you're building a relationship. So I actually get to have that relationship with my client where they're living. stay on with them throughout their life. So as things change, we can update their plan. And then when they can't be there for their family can reach out to me and I can help guide them. So you're really investing in that relationship as well.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, it's a plan. It's not a single document. And that's the whole point. You say it's an estate plan. It's not, and that's, I could see that being a case where people are like, I just need a will. That's what people tell me. You need a will, get a will. But it's an overall plan that covers a lot more than just what's included in a will.
Yes, exactly.
You mentioned that you come to, people come to you and revisit when life changes happen, all that stuff. Is there sort of a general rule as far as how often someone should review or update their plan? Is, when life events trigger something?
Yeah, ideally you'd review your plan every 3 to 5 years, but sometimes there's key events that occur that would trigger you to want to update your plan even sooner, like getting married, having more children, going through a divorce, buying more property, selling property, major changes in your financial situation or health. Those things might prompt, a review. So definitely you want to make sure that your plan is current and reflects your current situation and wishes.
Yeah, my parents, they're older. They actually just had to redo theirs, and they realized that my sister's last name in the will was still her previous marriage last name, which was way long ago. So they were like, oh, maybe we should take care of that. And they did it online the first time, and they didn't have someone reminding them, hey, if there's any life changes, there's that connection you were talking about, that relationship you build over time that you don't really build with LegalZoom.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, now we're talking about all of the reasons that you should have an estate plan. Can you kind of talk about sort of what happens when you don't, some of the consequences, some of the trouble it causes?
Yeah, so if you don't have an estate plan in place, the state you live in has a plan for you, and it may or may not align with what you would have wanted to happen. So if you have no plan, the state and a judge who is essentially a complete stranger to you and your kids and your family is going to make decisions about you, your kids, and your assets. So that's something to really not take lightly. Also your family's not going to know. If you don't create another document that I help my clients put together as a financial inventory. So above that goes beyond just like the normal documents, like if you get documents offline or things like that, that's what I'm talking about with a comprehensive plan. But if you don't have that, like how is your family going to find where you bank? Or when you open that random online savings account through the bank where you only get email alerts, you don't get mail.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
There's so much lost assets in our country. I think it's like, I don't know, 160 billion or something like that. It was like a really large number across the United States. I know New York is like 6 billion in unclaimed property. So
can I just get a fraction of that? I could just give me a fraction of that and I'll be fine.
I mean, it's really wild. It's so wild to think about.
A lot.
Yeah. And, you don't want that to happen. You've worked so hard your whole life. I mean, I think people really think like, oh, I don't even have $1 million. Well, if you have, whatever you have, you'd rather it go down to your kids or your grandkids or someone that you love, than get lost in an institution and go to the state, right? Mm-hmm. So having that plan in place prevents that.
Yeah, that would be bad. That would be unfortunate. Yeah. And then, so much digital banking today too, right? Like if you have, I'll pick on my parents again, but like knock on wood, if God forbid I went, like they wouldn't understand how to get to digital banks and my cryptocurrency and stuff. They have no clue. They'd be like, what? So that makes a lot of sense to have a complete document of where all your finances are. So for anyone listening who's just starting to think about estate planning, where should they begin and what initial steps do you recommend to get the process started?
What we do is we offer 2 options to get started. Our firm, we do a free 15-minute phone call. Otherwise, if no, I don't even have basic questions. I'm ready to start planning. I just want to get this done. Mm-hmm. Then we schedule you for what's called a family wealth planning session. That's a working session with an attorney, and you're going to sit down, discuss your personal family dynamics, which plan makes sense for your goals and your family and your assets. So those are kind of our two options to get started. But for someone who's like, oh, I just want some more information, like, I don't know, I don't even want to talk to a law firm, that's fine too. Like at our law firm, Rose Harper Law, we have a free ebook that we can send people. And then I'm also creating a webinar, so you can look out for that, and you'll be able to, learn more. And that way, when you are ready to move forward, we'll be here for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in to Leaving a Legacy, Navigating Estate Planning with Rose Harper Law. To connect with Rose and the team, head to roseharperlaw.com and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We love having you be part of our community. And thank you, Rose, very much for all that insight. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.